Lagos shimmered like a jewel that never slept, its streets alive with the roar of engines, the flash of neon, and the restless heartbeat of ambition. From the skies, the city seemed a tapestry of gold and shadows, wealth gleaming on one side, emptiness lurking in narrow alleys. Men in suits hurried past vendors shouting over the hum of traffic. Women in dazzling gowns floated by, yet beneath their steps lay a silent longing for meaning. The city gave riches, but it did not give love. It whispered promises of power but delivered only loneliness. Children played near flickering streetlights, their laughter weaving briefly through the cold hum of commerce, reminding the night that life still existed beyond money. Somewhere high above, in a glass tower that pierced the clouds, a man looked down upon the glittering streets, yet his heart remained untouched. The city had all but forgotten him, and he, in turn, had forgotten how to feel. Obinna Okafor's mansion crowned the skyline like a crystal throne. Inside, silence reigned where music should have danced. Guests bowed in respect when he entered, yet none dared approach his heart. His empire sprawled across continents, yet in the reflection of polished glass he saw only himself, a man alone. "I have everything," he murmured to the empty room. "And yet I am poorer than any man who owns nothing." The city below did not know his sorrow, and he did not know how to ask for love. He walked past walls lined with golden mirrors, feeling the chill of isolation deeper than the night outside. The glass towers reflected the world's admiration, yet hid the emptiness that even wealth could not fill. Parties glittered with light and laughter, yet Obinna felt the hollowness beneath each toast. Women smiled, danced, and whispered promises, yet none stayed. None touched the man behind the power. He bought attention, but the hearts he sought remained distant, like stars unreachable in the smog of ambition. "Why do they leave?" he asked the walls. The answer came only in silence. Each golden gift, each grand gesture was a drumbeat with no rhythm of joy. In his vast halls, he walked past tables filled with feasts, candles flickering over empty chairs, haunted by the ghost of connection he could not purchase. He remembered his father's laughter turning to rage, his mother's tears carving lines of fear and caution into his young heart. The love he witnessed was brittle, and he learned early to build walls higher than the tallest tower. Vulnerability seemed weakness, control the only strength. "I will never be fooled again," he promised himself. Yet in that promise lay a curse. The more he controlled, the emptier he became. Nights in his glass palace were long and silent, the city buzzing far below, while his heart beat alone. He had built empires, bought palaces, and yet he could not buy what he longed for most: a hand to hold, a voice that loved him for who he was, not what he owned. The outskirts of the city were calm, where the roar of Lagos faded into whispers of wind and the soft song of crickets. Mama Grace sat on a worn wooden chair, hands folded over her lap, eyes closed in quiet prayer. The oil lamp flickered, casting shadows that danced on the walls like spirits of ancestors watching over her. "My son, Obinna," she whispered, voice trembling with love and worry. "A man who cannot love is already poor." She prayed not for his wealth, not for his fame, but for the warmth he had never known. Her words carried the weight of generations, a mother's plea woven with tradition, faith, and foresight. Outside, the night seemed to listen, rustling leaves as if carrying her words into the hands of destiny. Moonlight spilled across the humble room as Mama Grace knelt by the lamp. Tears fell freely, tracing lines down her face, glinting in the dim light. "Spirit of our ancestors, hear me," she murmured. "Send someone to my son, a woman whose heart can soften his pride and teach him to love." The wind swirled outside, as though answering her call, whispering among the trees and through the corridors of time. She remained there long into the night, a mother's heart breaking and hoping, offering her prayers as a sacrifice, believing that some force beyond her could shape the destiny of her son. From the dusty road, Amara arrived, her bare feet carrying her from the village into the gates of Mama Grace's mansion. She carried nothing but a small bundle of belongings and a heart full of hope. Her eyes shone with humility and quiet courage, unafraid of the glittering, silent walls around her. "Good morning, Ma," she said softly, bowing before the elderly woman. Mama Grace's eyes lingered on her for a moment, sensing the innocence and strength within the girl, as if fate had placed her there. Amara had no knowledge of the man whose heart awaited awakening, but she walked forward with a step light and unshakable, unaware that she was the seed that would soon challenge a king in his glass tower. In the city, tabloids screamed their gossip. "The billionaire who can't keep a woman." The headlines read, images of Obinna flashing across the screens. He laughed when his aides showed him the latest story, yet behind the glass of his office, his reflection was heavy and hollow. He poured himself a drink, staring at the city lights stretching endlessly below. The laughter of the city's elite felt distant and hollow, and in the silence of his apartment, he felt the sting of every word. Pride masked his pain, but the truth remained. No amount of money could fill the emptiness that followed him like a shadow. Mama Grace watched her son from afar, heart clenched by worry. She paced the quiet halls, feeling the years pressing on her back, the inevitability of time's passing. "Will I live to see him find peace?" she murmured to herself, her hands trembling over the table. All she could do was place her faith in the mysterious currents of fate and in the humble strength of a poor girl who had yet to understand the power she carried. Somewhere, unseen, Amara's gentle spirit was preparing to weave into the life of the man the city mocked, to bring warmth where there had only been cold, and to teach that love, once nurtured, was worth more than all the wealth in Lagos. Thunder rolled across the Lagos skyline, shaking the glass towers with a low, resonant growl. Rain began to fall in slow, cleansing sheets, tapping on the rooftops as if the city itself were taking a deep breath. Mama Grace stepped onto her veranda in the countryside, her frail frame wrapped in a thin shawl. She lifted her eyes to the gray sky and whispered, "Even a dry tree will bloom when heaven sends rain." Her voice trembled, carrying the weight of years spent watching her son chase wealth while neglecting love. The distant storm mirrored the shift coming in her family, a cleansing omen, a foreshadowing of change that would touch every heart. The Harmattan wind blew through the ancestral home, carrying a chill that made Mama Grace's bones ache. She coughed softly, placing a hand on her chest, feeling her strength wane. Her small cottage, surrounded by the whispering palms and dry earth of the countryside, seemed to echo the fading light of her son's soul. "I cannot leave this world before he finds peace," she murmured, glancing at the worn furniture and fading portraits of family long gone. The courtyard, empty except for the chirping of crickets, became the stage where destiny was quietly assembling, each shadow and gust of wind hinting at the trials to come. Obinna drove out of Lagos reluctantly, the city lights shrinking behind him like embers fading in the night. The roar of traffic and the glitter of wealth gave way to quiet roads lined with waving palm trees. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white. "I go because I must, not because I wish to," he muttered, eyes fixed on the winding path ahead. The road seemed endless, stretching into the calm countryside, away from the empire he had built. A kingdom of noise and gold where his heart had never found rest. Duty, and nothing more, guided his reluctant journey home. At the old compound, a familiar scent of earth and cassava greeted him. He saw a girl at the well, humming softly, barefoot, her hands steady as she filled a clay pot with water. Her presence was simple yet calming, and it startled him with its quiet power. She turned, meeting his gaze, but there was no awe in her eyes, only curiosity. "Good morning, sir," she said simply, tilting her head in greeting. Obinna's breath caught. The world he commanded in Lagos felt distant here. "Good morning," he replied cautiously, unused to being treated as an ordinary man. Something in her calmness made the arrogance he wore like armor feel suddenly heavy. Their first words became a dance of contrasts, a clash of two worlds. Obinna raised an eyebrow, smirking at her earthy manner. "You really believe the soil can teach a man about life?" he asked, voice sharp. Amara smiled, tilting her head. "And you believe all that money makes a man wise?" she countered softly. He laughed, a little harshly, and she shook her head, amused by his city pride. They argued quietly, exchanging teasing jabs, laughter mingling with scorn. In their words, a strange bond began to form, unspoken, fragile, and powerful. Neither yet understood it, but destiny had begun to weave their lives together, thread by careful thread, under the sun and the mango tree. Obinna followed Amara into the backyard, a small patch of earth that smelled of wet soil and promise. She knelt, hands moving with gentle precision, planting cassava cuttings into neat rows. "You see, Obinna," she said, wiping sweat from her brow, "love is like this cassava. You cannot force it with gold or grand gestures. It grows only when you tend it with patience, care, and respect." Her voice carried a quiet authority that seemed to echo Mama Grace's long-forgotten teachings. Obinna watched, unsettled, feeling a stir within him that no city party, no flashing diamond had ever produced. Later, guests filled his grand living room, laughter ringing against the cold marble. Obinna, full of pride, mocked Amara's rural ideas, speaking loud so everyone could hear. "You actually believe a tree can teach a man about love?" he said, booming with laughter. Amara, calm as the morning sun, tilted her head and smiled. "Even a tree without fruit gives shade," she replied softly. The room fell silent for a heartbeat, and Obinna felt a rare unease. His ego trembled under her quiet wisdom. That night, he dreamed of his father beneath a massive baobab, the wind whispering through its leaves. His father's eyes were stern, voice carrying weight of judgment. "You command the world, but your heart is empty." Obinna woke drenched in sweat, heart pounding, unsure whether it was a dream or an ancestral warning. Days passed. He lingered over small moments, the scent of firewood in the courtyard, the soft laughter of Amara and Mama Grace, the chorus of crickets after dusk. His chest felt lighter, yet he resisted, fearing that openness was weakness. Still, his heart stirred in ways money could never buy. Word from the city arrived like a sharp wind. Tabloids screamed, "Billionaire falls for housemaid!" High society laughed. His friends whispered warnings, and business partners pressed their concerns. Reputation, power, and pride clashed with the quiet awakening in his heart. Obinna realized that love, though tender, was also dangerous, and the city's mockery was only beginning. The grand dining hall shimmered with crystal chandeliers and polished silver, yet the air was heavy with pride and tension. Obinna sat at the head of the table, business partners leaning in with smiles that hid judgment. Plates of roasted goat and jollof rice were passed, but the conversation turned to Amara. "She's just a village girl," one man sneered. "What does she bring to the table but dirt and superstition?" Obinna's chest tightened. Heat rose to his face. In a sharp voice, louder than necessary, he said, "She is nothing more than a servant in this house. Remember that?" Amara sat silently, her hands folded over her lap, eyes glistening. She did not defend herself. She only looked at him with a sorrow that cut deeper than any words. The room fell into uneasy quiet, the clinking of cutlery the only sound. Obinna's pride felt like armor, but in its weight he sensed an unfamiliar emptiness. Before dawn, a soft rustle woke him. Amara moved through the hall, her small bag slung over her shoulder. She paused by the cassava patch outside, running her fingers over the tender green shoots. Leaving behind her rosary and the half-grown plants, she stepped into the morning mist, silent, peaceful, a ghost of the love that might have been. Days later, Mama Grace lay in her bed, frail as a dried leaf. Her hands trembled as she pressed a note to Obinna's name. "Love is not found in women you can buy, but in the one who forgives your pride." The old woman's breath slowed, and with her final exhale the world seemed colder, the moral weight of her life pressing onto her son. Back in Lagos, Obinna's mansion felt vast and hollow. The laughter of the city now mocked him from every neon light. Scandals erupted, deals crumbled, and his empire groaned under the weight of neglect. He stared at the cassava roots he had brought from the village, once a symbol of hope, now shriveled and lifeless. The emptiness of wealth pressed down like a heavy stone, and for the first time, he felt powerless. Thunder rolled over the skyline, drums of regret echoing through the glass towers. The wind carried a sound he knew too well, Amara's laughter, or perhaps it was only memory. Obinna sank into the realization. He commanded riches beyond imagining, yet he was poor in the ways that mattered most. His heart, armored by pride, now beat in sorrow. The city that had once celebrated his power now witnessed his loss, as the true cost of arrogance revealed itself. The mansion once thrummed with laughter and music, but now it stood empty, its grandeur hollow. The chandeliers swayed gently, catching raindrops that slipped through the cracks of the glass, scattering fragile light across the marble floors. Obinna walked alone, each step loud in the silence, echoing against walls that had known every celebration he had thrown and every guest who had fawned at his feet. Outside, the storm mirrored the chaos in his heart. Each clap of thunder a reminder of what money could never buy. Peace. Love, forgiveness? He paused by the drawing room window, eyes resting on the untouched teacup she had left behind. A memory surfaced, her laughter, soft as a village morning, echoing in the hall. The garden she had tended, now wilted and gray beneath the rain, seemed to mourn with him. The flowers, once vibrant like her spirit, drooped under the weight of neglect. Obinna sank into the plush sofa, feeling for the first time what it meant to be poor. Not poor in wealth, but in heart. The next morning, he shed the weight of silk and gold, trading expensive suits for plain village clothes. The journey was long, winding through muddy roads, past villages where the people who once bowed now regarded him as any traveler. Each step humbled him, stripping layers of arrogance he had worn like armor. He felt the eyes of the earth and sky upon him, and with each mile, the city's echoes of laughter and scorn fell away. At last, beneath the wide shade of a mango tree, he saw her. Amara knelt among children, her hands guiding small fingers as they strummed songs of honesty, kindness, and patience. Her eyes lifted as she noticed him, calm and unstartled, as if his wealth or absence of it meant nothing. Villagers waved and nodded at him, not as Sir Okafor, but simply as Obinna. For the first time, the billionaire felt the weight of humility and the lightness that came with genuine human connection. His pride crumbled beneath the simplicity and warmth of her world, and in that quiet village scene, he began to understand what true wealth meant. Obinna sank to his knees on the damp earth, the weight of his pride finally breaking like brittle clay. The village watched in silence, elders leaning on walking sticks, children halting their games, and mothers holding their breath. His voice trembled, rough from disuse and humility, as he spoke. "Amara, I was blind. I let my heart grow hard, and in doing so, I lost what matters most. Forgive me. No titles, no wealth, no grandeur, only a man humbled by his own mistakes." From the sky, heavy clouds opened, and rain poured down, drumming on the leaves and the tin roofs of the village huts. Villagers hurried for shelter, but Amara stood still beneath the falling drops, her gaze steady. The water washed the dust and grime from Obinna's clothes, and with it, layers of arrogance peeled away. Thunder rolled softly, as if the heavens themselves whispered, "Even the proud must bow before love." His tears mingled with the rain, baptismal and freeing. Amara stepped closer, the hem of her skirt damp but her spirit unshaken. Her voice was gentle, yet it cut deeper than any scolding. "Love cannot be bought, Obinna. It must be grown, like cassava, with patience, care, and faith." He looked into her eyes, seeing not pity, but understanding. In that moment, redemption touched him, soft and unearned. The stormlight softened, rain falling in silver threads. They stood side by side, no words spoken, only the quiet communion of two souls who had faced the cost of pride and survived. Around them, the village seemed to glow under the fading stormlight, each hut and tree part of a living story renewed. Love, once buried beneath ego, now breathed quietly but strongly. And through the retreating thunder, the village understood the lesson the storm had brought. Wealth may build walls, but love, patient, humble, and true, shatters them. Even the richest man must kneel, not before men or money, but before the truth of his own heart. The city watched in quiet astonishment as Obinna moved through the boardrooms that once defined him, speaking not of deals, but of purpose. The towers of glass that had mirrored his ambition now reflected his humility. He sold most of his companies, each transaction a step away from pride and toward meaning. "Wealth is no longer my crown," he whispered to himself, watching the city pulse with life. "It is the bridge to those who need it most." The Lion of Lagos, who once roared for status, now bowed to life's quiet truths, learning that respect earned through compassion outweighs the applause of gold. In the village where Mama Grace had spent her last years, the foundation opened its doors with the morning sun casting golden light over the mango trees. Elders sang blessings that rose into the warm air, their voices carrying ancestral wisdom. Obinna stood beside them, feeling the weight of his mother's love in every note. "This is not a launch of wealth," he murmured. "It is a life renewed through giving." Each child stepping inside became a symbol of Mama Grace's vision, her faith now breathing through generations. Amara stood beside him, calm and unwavering, her eyes bright with quiet authority. "Progress without heart is like a river without water," she told the gathered team. Her words, simple yet profound, guided city projects with the humility of village wisdom. No longer a servant, she had become a teacher, a leader, and the moral compass of change. Together they bridged worlds, the polished ambition of Lagos and the grounded simplicity of the village, uniting both in purpose and respect. Behind the modest home Obinna had chosen for himself, he knelt in the soft earth, planting cassava with hands once accustomed only to paper and gold. Each seed he buried was a lesson in patience, care, and humility. "This is how love grows," he whispered to the soil, remembering Amara's words. The garden became sacred, a living testament to his transformation. As leaves unfurled under the warm sun, so too did his heart, healed by work, by giving, and by the slow, enduring rhythms of life he had once ignored. The wooden gate swings open with a creak, and children from the neighborhood pour in, their laughter spilling like river water over the courtyard. Obinna sits on a simple bench, his sleeves rolled up, dust clinging to his hands from the garden work. One child runs past, tugging at his shirt. "Catch me, uncle!" she shouts, her eyes wide with delight. He rises with a grin, joining their game, his laughter echoing across the humble home. It is not the laugh of a man entertained by gold or flattery, but the pure joy of being present. No guards, no polished floors, no luxury cars, only warmth, the kind that Mama Grace once nurtured with her soft hands and gentle heart. For the first time in years, the mansion that had felt empty now breathes with life. As the sun dips behind the cassava field, a gentle wind stirs the leaves, carrying with it a voice only he can hear. "True wealth is not in what you have, my son, but in who you become when love finds you." Obinna pauses, closing his eyes as the words settle into his chest. He smiles softly, feeling the familiar warmth of his mother's blessing. Her spirit rustles through the trees, invisible yet present, guiding him with the same wisdom that shaped his path. The cassava leaves tremble as if nodding, affirming that the seeds of love and humility have finally taken root. Around the village fires, elders speak of what they have witnessed. "Love cannot be bought," one murmurs, voice cracking with age. Another adds, "Pride blinds the heart, but humility restores the soul." And the youngest elder, eyes shining in the firelight, concludes, "The richest man is not the one with gold, but the one who learns to give and be forgiven." Their voices weave together, carrying the story into memory and tradition. The tale of Obinna and Amara becomes a proverb, whispered in the evening air, teaching that true wealth resides only in the heart. Rain begins to fall once more, glistening on the rich soil of the cassava field. Each plant stands tall and green, thriving under the heaven's blessing. Obinna walks beside Amara, their hands clasped gently, stepping carefully between the rows they have nurtured. Beyond the garden, The school hums with life, children learning beneath its roof. The evening sun casts long shadows, painting the earth with gold and promise. Every storm endured, every lesson learned, has made the soil fertile for new beginnings. And as they stand together in the flourishing field, the humble home around them sings with quiet triumph, a testament to love, patience, and the enduring spirit of the human heart.